Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Richard Linklater's films, or at least some or a couple of his most celebrated works. I have a possibly unhealthy dislike of his 1993 feature Dazed and Confused. I'm not sure even where to start. I just find the damn thing utterly meaningless and filled with insufferable behaviour and bizarre Stockholm Syndrome-y glorification of it, whatever. And then Boyhood I found annoyingly overrated, though a dislike of it is not uncommon either, which is pretty nice to note, so... Anything he released after Boyhood seemed painfully uninteresting to me and outright unappealing in at least a couple of instances, so I find it a bit difficult to call myself a fan of Linklater's work. However, I am still fascinated to see his first two features, 1988's It's Impossible to Learn to Plow by Reading Books and 1991's Heads I Win, Tails You Lose. I do admire the Before trilogy really quite a bit, enjoyed his 2001 film Tape. Hated Waking Life, or chose to when I was 18, but would probably appreciate it a lot more now, if not just for trying to be something totally mind-altering and consciousness-raising, even if it or its subjects can seem just a bit too proud of it/themselves/selves. And then there's A Scanner Darkly, 2006, a Philip K. Dick adaptation, one of the most celebrated of them now, and one of the more fascinating American films in many people's opinions, to be released during the 2000s. Oh, and Bernie from Linklater in 2011, that one wasn't so bad either, actually. Obviously, visually, Scanner Darkly, it is a compelling experience, and narratively there is much to like in so far as it is just, insofar as it just replicates the text as Dick penned it back in the 70s, and then you just take it or leave it from there. One's opinion on the text reflected via their opinion on the film, I'd assume. Unless one thinks it is a desecration of the text in some way, feel free to offer that perspective in the comment section below. Some info on the inspiration for the source text from Philip K. Dick. It is sourced from Wikipedia. I'm sharing it here. A Scanner Darkly is a fictionalized account of real events based on Dick's experiences in the 1970s drug culture. Dick said in an interview, "Everything in A Scanner Darkly I actually saw." Between mid-1970, when his fourth wife Nancy left him, and mid-1972, Dick lived semi-communally with a rotating group of mostly teenage drug users at his home in Marin County, described in a letter as being located at 707 Hacienda Way, Santa Venetia. Dick explained, "My wife Nancy left me in 1970. I got mixed up with a lot of street people just to have somebody to fill the house. She left me with a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house and nobody living in it but me. So I just filled it with street people and I got mixed up with a lot of people who were into drugs. During this period, the author ceased writing completely and became fully dependent upon amphetamines, which he had been using intermittently for many years. I did take amphetamines for years in order to be able to... I was able to produce 68 final pages of copy a day," Dick said. The character of Donna was inspired by an older teenager who became associated with Dick sometime in 1970, though they never became lovers. The woman was his principal female companion until early 1972, when Dick left for Canada to deliver a speech to a Vancouver science fiction convention. This speech, The Android and the Human, served as the basis for many of the recurring themes and motifs in the ensuing novel. Another turning point in this time frame for Dick is the alleged burglary of his home and theft of his papers. After delivering The Android and the Human, Dick became a participant in Ex-Calais, a Canadian Synanon-type recovery program, effortlessly convincing program caseworkers that he was nursing a heroin addiction to do so. Dick's recovery program participation was portrayed in the posthumously released book The Dark-Haired Girl, a collection of letters and journals from this period, most of a romantic nature. It was at Ex-Calais, while doing publicity for the facility, that he devised the notion of rehab centers being used to secretly harvest drugs, thus inspiring the book's New Path clinics. In the afterword, Dick dedicates the book to those of his friends. He includes himself, who had experienced debilitation or death as a result of their drug use. Mirroring the epilogue are the involuntary goodbyes that occur throughout the story, the constant turnover and burnout of young people that lived with Dick during those years. In the afterword, he states that the novel is about some people who were punished entirely too much for what they did, and that drug misuse is not a disease, it is a decision, like the decision to move out in front of a moving car. A Scanner Darkly was one of the few Dick novels to gestate over a long period of time. By February 1973, in an effort to prove that the effects of his amphetamine usage were merely psychosomatic, the newly clean and sober author had already prepared a full outline. A first draft was in development by March. This labor was soon supplanted by a new family and the completion of Flow My Tears, the Policeman Said, left unfinished in 1970, which was finally released in 1974 and received the prestigious John W. Campbell Award. Additional preoccupations were the mystical experiences of early 1974 that eventually served as a basis for Valis and the Exegesis Journal, a screenplay for an unproduced film adaptation of 1969's Ubik, occasional lectures, and the expedited completion of the deferred Roger Zell Asney collaboration Daus Irae in 1975. Because of its semi-autobiographical nature, some of A Scanner Darkly was torturous to write. Tessa Dick, Philip's wife at the time, once stated that she often found her husband weeping as the sun rose after a night-long writing session. Tess has given an interview stating that when he was with me, he wrote A Scanner Darkly in under 2 weeks, but we spent 3 years rewriting it, and that she was pretty involved in his writing process for A Scanner Darkly. Tessa stated in a later interview that she participated in the writing of A Scanner Darkly and said that she considers herself the silent co-author. Philip wrote a contract giving Tessa half of all the rights to the novel, which stated that Tessa participated to a great extent in writing the outline and novel A Scanner Darkly with me, and I owe her one half of all income derived from it. There was also the challenge of transmuting the events into science fiction, as Dick felt that he could not sell a mainstream or literary novel after several previous failures. Providing invaluable aid in this field was Judy Lindell Ray, head of Ballantine Books' SF division, which had optioned the book. Del Rey suggested the timeline change to 1994 and emphasized the more futuristic elements of the novel, such as the scramble suit employed by Fred, which incidentally emerged from one of the mystical experiences, yet much of the dialogue spoken by the characters used hippie slang, dating the events of the novel to their true time frame of 1970 to 72. Upon its publication in 1977, A Scanner Darkly was hailed by ALA Booklist as his best yet. Brian Aldiss lauded it as the best book of the year, while Robert Silverberg praised the novel as a masterpiece of sorts, full of demonic intensity, but concluded that it happens also not to be a very successful novel, a failure, but a stunning failure. Spider Robinson panned the novel as sometimes fascinating, sometimes hilarious, but usually deadly boring. Sales were typical for the SF genre in America, but hardcover editions were issued in Europe, where all of Dick's works were warmly received. It was nominated for neither the Nebula nor the Hugo Award, but it was awarded the British version, the BSFA, in 1978, and the French equivalent, Graouli d'Or, upon its publication there in 1979. It also was nominated for the Campbell Award in 1978 and placed 6th in the annual Locus poll. The title of the novel refers to the biblical phrase "through a glass, darkly," from the King James Version of 1 Corinthians 13. Passages from Johann Wolfgang von Goethe's play Faust are also referred to throughout the novel. The same titled film by Ingmar Bergman has also been cited as a reference for the book, the film depicting the similar descent into madness and schizophrenia of its lead character portrayed by Harriet Anderson. We'll close it here. Thank you, everyone. I hope you are as well as you have ever been or might ever imagine.